I learned that before Shusha. So, my name tonight is Mary. Call me Mary Xmas. And that is for the commercial part of the holiday season, for the non-religious part. And I have some candy canes with me that I've been handing out to all the naughty boys and girls. So if you've been very naughty, let me know after I'm done reading, and we can see about getting you one of those candy canes. So, I'm actually going to read a piece that I haven't read for 30 or 40 years. I read it yesterday. It's by J.R.R. Tolkien from his Unfinished Tales, and it is indeed the history of the beginning of the rings. I was looking at another one about the founding of Middle-earth, and I thought, well, I could save that for something else. So this is what we're getting tonight. And if it's too much for any of you, you just let me know and I'll stop reading. Throw something. Otherwise, I won't notice. And this is called The Hunt for the Ring. Oh dear, lighting. On the journey of the Black Riders, according to the account that Gandalf gave to Frodo, Gollum was captured in Mordor in the year 3017 and taken to Barad-dûr, and there questioned and tormented. When he had learned what he could from him, Sauron released him and sent him forth again. He did not trust Gollum, for he divined something indomitable in him, which could not be overcome even by the shadow of fear, except by destroying him. But Sauron perceived the depth of Gollum's malice towards those that had wronged him, and guessing that he would go in search of them to avenge himself, Sauron hoped that his spies would thus be led to the ring. Gollum, however, was before long captured by Aragorn and taken to northern Mirkwood, and though he was followed, he could not be rescued before he was in safekeeping. Now Sauron had never paid heed to the halflings, even if he had heard of them, and he did not yet know where their land lay. From Gollum, even under pain, he could not get any clear account, both because Gollum indeed had no certain knowledge himself, and because what he knew he falsified. Ultimately indomitable he was, except by death, as Sauron guessed, both from his halfling nature and from a cause which Sauron did not fully comprehend, being himself consumed by lust for the ring. Then he became filled with the hatred of Sauron, even greater than his terror, seeing in him truly his greatest enemy and rival. Thus it was that he dared to pretend that he believed that the land of the halflings was near to the places where he had once dwelt beside the banks of the Gladden. Now Sauron, learning of the capture of Gollum by the chiefs of his enemy, moved with great haste and fear. Yet all his ordinary spies and emissaries could bring him no tidings, and this was due largely both to the vigilance of the Dunedain and to the treachery of Saruman, whose own servants either waylaid or misled the servants of Sauron. Of this Sauron became aware, but his arm was not yet long enough to reach Saruman in Isengard. Therefore he hid his knowledge of Saruman's double-dealing and concealed his wrath, biding his time and preparing for the great war in which he planned to sweep all his enemies into the western sea. At length he resolved that no others would serve him in this case but his mightiest servants, the Ringwraiths, who had no will but to his own, being each utterly subservient to the ring that had enslaved him, which Sauron held. Now few could withstand even one of these fell creatures, and as Sauron deemed, none could withstand them when gathered together under their terrible captain, the Lord of Morgoth. Yet his weakness they had for Sauron's present purpose. So great was the terror that went with them, even invisible and unclad, that their coming forth might soon be perceived and their mission be guessed by the wise. So it was that Sauron prepared two strokes, in which many after saw the beginnings of the War of the Ring. They were made together. The orcs assailed the realm of Thranduil with orders to recapture Gollum, and the Lord of Morgoth was sent forth openly to battle against Gondor. These things were done towards the end of June 3018. Thus Sauron tested the strength and preparedness of Denethor, and found them more than he had hoped. But that troubled him little, since he had used little force in the assault, and his chief purpose was that the coming forth of the Nazgul should appear only as part of his policy of war against Gondor. Therefore, when Osgiliath was taken and the bridge broken, Sauron stayed the assault, and the Nazgul were ordered to begin the search for the ring. But Sauron did not esteem the powers and vigilance of the wise, and the Nazgul were commanded to act as secretly as they could. Now at that time the chieftain of the ring race dwelt in Minas Morgul with 6 companions, while the second to the chief, Camo, the Shadow of the East, abode in Dol Guldur as Sauron's lieutenant. Just slipping. Or not really, but anyway. Where was I? In Dol Guldur as Sauron's lieutenant, with one other as his messenger. The Lord of Morgul, therefore, led his companions over Anduin, unclad and unmounted, and invisible to eyes, and yet a terror to all living things that they passed near. It was maybe on the first day of July that they went forth. They passed slowly and in stealth through Anorion, and over the Entway, and so into the wold. And rumor of darkness and a dread of men knew that not what went before them. They reached the west shores of Anduin, a little north of Sangavir, as they had trysted, and there received horses and raiment that were secretly ferried over the river. This was, it is thought, about the 17th of July. Then they passed northward, seeking for the Shire, the land of the halflings. About the 22nd of July, they met their companions, the Nazgul of Dol Guldur, in the field of Celebrant. There they learned that Gollum had eluded both the orcs that recaptured him and the elves that pursued him, and had vanished. They were told also by Camo that no dwelling of halflings could be discovered in the Vales of Anduin, or Vales, and that the villages of the Stures by the Gladden had long been deserted. But the Lord of Morgul, seeing no better counsel, determined still to seek northward, hoping maybe to come upon Gollum as well as to discover the Shire. That seemed to him not unlikely. It was not indeed within the fences of Galadriel, but the power of the White Ring he would not defy, nor enter yet into Lorien. Passing therefore between Lorien and the mountains of the Nine, rode ever on into the north, and terror went before them and lingered behind them. But they did not find what they sought, nor learn any news that availed them. How am I for time? Okay. Well, it's a bit less. No. At length, these are the unfinished tales, and they were meant to be book length, you know. At length they returned, but the summer was now far waned, and the wrath and fear of Sauron was mounting. When they came back to the wold, September had come, and there they met messengers from Barad-dûr, conveying threats from their master that filled even the Morgul lord with dismay. For Sauron had now learned the words of prophecy heard in Gondor, and the growing forth of Boromir of Saruman's deeds, and the capture of Gandalf. From these things he concluded indeed that neither Saruman nor any other of the wise had possession yet of the ring, but that Saruman at least knew where it might be hidden. Speed alone would now serve, and secrecy must be abandoned. The ring race, therefore, were ordered to go straight to Isengard. They rode then through Rohan in haste, and the terror of their passing was so great that many folk fled from the land and went wildly away north and west, believing war out of the east was coming on the heels of the black horses. 2 days after Gandalf had departed from Orthanc, the Lord of Morgul halted before the gate of Isengard. Then Saruman, already filled with wrath and fear by the escape of Gandalf, perceived the peril of standing between enemies, a known traitor to both. His dread was great, for his hope of deceiving Sauron, or at least of receiving his favor in victory, was utterly lost. Now either he himself must gain the ring or come to ruin and torment. But he was wary and cunning still, and he had ordered Isengard against just such an evil chance. The circle of Isengard was too strong for even the Lord of Morgul and his company to assail without great force of war. Therefore, to his challenge and demands, he received only the answer of the voice of Saruman, that spoke by some art as though it came from the gate itself. "It is not a land that you look for," it said. "I know what you seek, though you do not name it. I have it not, as surely as servants perceive without telling. For if I had it, then you would bow before me and call me Lord. And if I knew where this thing was hid, I should not be here, but long gone before you to take it. There is one only whom I guess to have this knowledge, Mithrandir, enemy of Sauron. And since it is but a few days since he departed from Isengard, seek him nearby." Qualifications a little bit. If any of you have not read Unfinished Tales, they are stories worked on over the many years by Tolkien, both prehistory and post-history of a lot of the well-known The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. And the other option I was thinking of reading tonight was, like I was saying earlier, is from the Silmarillion, which is the history of all the stuff before. And you're on about page 3, from darkness to full-on independent thought, when we discover evil has taken over. One of my favorite themes this time of year, because, we are into the longest nights. I know everyone likes to think the shortest days, but by default, my kind prefer the other end of it, the darker. I mean, it's not stormy, but it is December. So, thank you, and I will return later with a different art author and a little bit of humor.